Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of That Podcast. It's Released from the Vault.
All right, we're recording. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Zoomcast. We have Sarah back and Pastor DJ, of course, and I'm Ryan Janke. And this week we are going to have a special Halloween episode. Now, is it Halloween or Halloween?
Interesting. I would say Halloween so that you understand that it's Hallow as compared to hollow, like my head is hollow, which would be Hollow. But it probably has to do more with just your accent and what you say, you know. It's like saying, do we live in North Dakota, as my brother likes to say, or do we live in North Dakota?
North Dakota.
North Dakota.
Is there no TH is what you're saying? And it's all one word, just NORD, North Dakota?
Yeah, North Dakota. Or like bison compared to everyone else who says bison. Or I used to live in Washington State, not Washington.
No Washington?
And Washington sits above Oregon, not Oregon. So
yeah.
Regional accents.
Regional accents for sure.
Sarah, where are you at on it?
See, I'm with DJ. I would say Halloween, but similar to like I always like over enunciate library because like one of the things that just gets under my skin is when kids say library.
Oh yeah.
It's library, Halloween.
Yeah, I'm Halloween as well, but I never even thought of it until my wife Tabitha pointed it out to me that she says Halloween and I say Halloween.
Boy, that's one subtle differentiation. Is your marriage doing okay?
We're fine. We're fine.
Okay. All right.
We
good.
Celebrated 19 years yesterday.
Ooh, congratulations. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And you still like each other after 19 years, huh?
Yeah. We had a fun conversation earlier today. Sarah, do you want me to tell the story, or do you want to tell the story? I gave Sarah some hey, if this happens, sort of watch out advice earlier today.
Yeah.
So, some wisdom from all of your adventures, huh?
Yeah. Well, more so so that she has some perspective.
So what do you say, Sarah? What's
Ryan's life advice is always just set the bar low because it can always exceed. However, be careful when you set that bar high because then it will be expected from there on out.
So yeah,
sure.
It's kind of like your first day on the track team. You don't want to give it your all. You want to sandbag a little bit. Otherwise, next time you go out, they're gonna,
it sounds like it takes a lot of work to keep from working. That sounds very tiring.
Well, I just told Sarah, if she finds that right guy and you get to that first anniversary and it seems like that was sort of blah, he's just making sure that, every year he can sort of exceed expectations.
Setting the bar low. There you go.
Yep. Too good. So what, well, we have a listener question. Should we get to that first, or do you want to talk Halloween first and get the question at the end?
Well, I'm looking at Sarah's screen and I'm just like, boy, it is Halloweened up in her office.
It's not only I got an upgrade in decor and also room size.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I've got prizes. People just bring me gifts. No.
That is something else. Well, so let's talk about Halloween first, and then we can get into the question because it's that season, and I don't know if people are aware of this. I certainly wasn't. In fact, it really hadn't touched my radar. I always thought that Halloween was just a fun holiday for kids where you got to dress up in costumes and get candy, and it was kind of spooky. And nowadays I took my daughter Halloween costume shopping, and we went to one of the Halloween stores that pop up at this time. And she was telling her sister about her experience shopping with her dad, because I would walk around every corner and just be like, that's gross. That's gross. Everything in here is gross.
Inappropriate.
Well, and it was, and to me, I'm like, well, that's not what the spirit of Halloween is about. But because having looked into it, I didn't realize Halloween means All Hallows Eve, or the Holy Evening, and it's a very old Christian tradition. But everything's so gross now that we lose the original intentionality of the holiday. So a little bit of history, if I can share. Halloween it goes back to like the 7th century in Europe. And it was one of 3 big holidays, Christian festivals. And a holiday had to do with a meal, like a special meal, right? And kind of like Thanksgiving in the United States, it's a special meal. If you're American, you celebrate Thanksgiving, you're probably going to eat a turkey. Well, the festivals within Christianity prior to the Reformation were often tied to a special meal and certain activities that are done. And by 1000 AD, a bunch of them were required in order to be considered Christian. It was like, hey, the church is having a party and you're going to come, basically, is how it came about. And All Hallows Eve was one of those. It's the big celebration before the more important holiday, which was All Saints Day on November 1st. Okay. So to step back and to explain this, what would you say is the biggest holiday in the United States?
In terms of what?
Commercials?
Commercials?
I mean, what are the different holidays in the United States? I guess we can start there.
Well, you got Christmas.
We got Christmas right off the bat. You named Christmas, right?
Yep.
What other holidays are there?
4th of July.
4th of July, Thanksgiving. Those are both about national identity. Christmas has become part of national identity, but its origins are in Christianity.
Yeah.
Okay. It's the celebration of Christ's birth.
Right.
And Christmas is not just one day in Christianity, it's an entire season. But the beginning of Christmas Day begins when? Is it midnight, December 25th? When does Christmas, the celebration of it, actually begin?
Well, if you're in Hobby Lobby, it starts about July 5th. And I'm okay with that.
Well,
it also depends on if you have one of the German chocolate calendars where you open the door
sure,
every day. What is that? Yeah, 25 days, right? It starts December 1st. Well,
so it actually begins on Christmas Eve at sundown. Okay. And this speaks to its Hebrew origins. It's Israel Jewish origins. When does the next day begin in the Jewish weekly calendar? Do you know?
The next day?
Saturdays.
What's that?
Saturday at like a certain time.
So Saturday is the Sabbath for according to the Jewish faith, correct?
Yep.
The day Saturday actually begins at sundown Friday evening. So the origins of that thinking came into Christianity. And as Christianity developed, it had certain celebrations very early on. One of those was Christmas. But the party, so to speak, celebrating the birth of Jesus begins on sundown the night before. So Christmas Eve. And then Christmas Day. Well, that pattern of a special evening prior to the important day is in all of the major Christian holidays in the United States. The one that goes beyond just an evening and day celebration is really the biggest Christian holiday, even though in the United States it doesn't seem like it is. Do you know what the biggest Christian holiday is?
Easter?
Easter. And how big is the celebration for Easter? How long does it last?
Gosh, almost all week, right?
All
yeah.
week.
Thursday.
Yeah.
Sunday through Sunday, and then you have the season of Easter that continues after that. Just like after the big Christmas celebration, you have the season of Christmas that follows.
Yep.
In medieval times, the three big holidays was Easter was the biggie. In importance was Easter. In lowest importance was Christmas, and in between the two was All Hallowtide or All Saints Day. And what happens on that day is it's a celebration and a remembrance of all of the saints who've overcome death.
Mm-hmm.
And so in between, and there's a bit of like competition between the church and pagan religions as Christianity moved through into Western Europe from like 500 to 1500 AD. But by the time of the standardizing of Halloween, all of Europe had been Christianized for centuries by this point. And so you have this celebration, which is really about celebrating life over death. With Halloween, you have a mocking of the powers of death and the devil through wearing costumes that make fun of the authority and power of scary things over our lives. You have the sharing of cakes and candies and making kind of a lampooning celebration with children dressing up as spooky things or whatnot, and trick-or-treating. And that does is it takes away the power of death and evil and the demonic and makes fun of it. Because what happens on All Saints Day is death is destroyed and overcome because Christ is risen, and therefore all the saints are risen as well. So in the church, we celebrate on November 1st All Saints Day, but it really is tied in conjunction with All Hallows Eve that begins the night before, just as Christmas Eve is tied into Christmas Day. And the entire Passion narrative all week long is tied into and reaches its culmination on Easter Sunday.
Yeah.
You following what I'm saying with all that? So I'm looking back behind Sarah at some of the like symbols and whatnot of the different like Halloweeny things. We got, spooky on the wall, and you have ghosts and
bats,
and pumpkins and bats. And all of those things are meant to lampoon the power of sin, death, and the devil. Like look at the ghosts. Are those scary to anybody?
Sarah, I don't know if I messed up the recording last week, so
so no.
Well, and the jack-o'-lanterns, there's a Celtic tradition about jack-o'-lanterns like housing the souls of the dead until they go on to their next, whatever. And so in carving into pumpkins a jack-o'-lantern and then putting a candle in it and making it into a children's activity, is that something that celebrates the demonic, or is it something that lampoons the power of such things? It serves to lampoon it. There's nothing scary about those carved pumpkins that I see on the black, whatever it may be. Even the imagery of the bats, which don't really have a Christian location, that goes more into like folklore of animals that were thought to be evil in some way. Wolves and bats and rats and black cats, and pretty much anything that has an "at" in it, it seems is considered evil or something. The imagery of it used on Halloween is meant to lampoon superstition and the fear of all those things, so that your faith rests in Jesus Christ and not in all of these superstitious mumbo jumbo that was in the folklore of all kinds of different cultures. So in many ways, Halloween itself is a war on superstition and false belief and taking the power out of it, so that your hope would rest not in these scary, mysterious, earthly, demonic powers, but that your hope would rest in Jesus Christ, who brings resurrection to the dead, rather than fearing the dead.
Now, Halloween is also Reformation Day, correct? The 31st?
It is. Yeah, on October 31st, 1517. That's when the Lutheran Reformation and ultimately the Protestant Reformation point to its birthplace. It's when Martin Luther took and wrote down 95 theses or 95 statements to debate within the church intelligentsia, theologians. I mean, he was a college professor after all. And he took them and he nailed them to the town billboard. Nowadays, that town billboard would be like what? Gas stations. You go to the billboard and you put up a poster of, "Come see this rock band."
Yeah, and then you'd have one of those tear off things with the phone number.
Luther just had this long slip of paper, and written in Latin were these 95 theses that was intended to just be a place for debate amongst his colleagues. In Wittenberg. His students take it off the wall, take it off he nailed it to the church door, which was like the bulletin board for the town. His students took it off, read it, and were just like, everyone needs to read this. And so they went, and it would be like someone today taking something off of a bulletin board and then typing in on the internet, on Facebook and Twitter, social media, "Hey, come to this concert." They went to the technology of their day. Here you have 20-something students leading the way in technological revolution. They go to the printing press with Luther's handwritten document and have it copied and disseminated all over Europe. And it's what caused what we know today as the Reformation. And it started on October 31st, 1517, over 500 years ago. So for Lutherans especially, I'm sorry, I got light behind me. I hope it's not bothering the recording. I better turn a little bit. On October 31st, for Lutherans especially, we recognize and celebrate the birth of the Reformation. And we do it in a couple ways. We're Americans as well, and we do all the Halloween-y stuff. But we also, in church, usually it's the closest Sunday, usually it's before October 31st, but it's the closest Sunday we recognize the Reformation. We sing like "A Mighty Fortress Is Our God." And often there are churches that will have confirmation services on Reformation Sunday, and that's for our youth who've been catechized in the faith, grown up in the church. They will come forward and give their basically public commitment of faith in Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior on Reformation Sunday.
Yeah, that's interesting. So, like with a lot of things, Halloween started as a Christian holiday, and then it sort of got commercialized, and now we have trick or treating and candy and costumes and all sorts of. What's that?
When you look into the history of these things and you take money out of it, it's interesting how many of the practices from Halloween and Halloween came to the United States really through Scottish and Irish immigrants. But the practices that we have Christian roots. Like the dressing up in costumes comes from this thing called, I believe it's called the Dance Macabre, which was like an early Halloween celebration that was practiced in France. And it had to do with dressing up in costumes and lampooning the power of superstitious, fearful, scary things. When I think of that stuff, it would be ghosts and goblins, but it would just be, it's morphed into a time of kind of fun dress up costumes and stuff. It was never like the gross kind of stuff that you see today.
Yeah.
But it was like, what's so scary about a devil who's bright red with goofy horns and a curvy tail? There's nothing. I mean, it's mocking that. What's so scary about a witch when you see that they got warts on the end of their nose and are just old ladies that have big hats and they carry around a broom with them? What's so scary about that? Right. That was the original intention. Or even ghosts, to say that ghosts have no power over you, because the one who takes care of the saints raises from death the souls of those who are saved. So there's nothing to fear about all this stuff. The more modern interpretation of that is, if you think about it, and I'm sure it was scary in its time, but think about like the Universal Studios monsters, like the original Dracula, blah blah blah, and I do not say blah blah blah. I do not say blah blah blah. Or the Wolf Man, or the Mummy. I mean, or even Frankenstein's monster. The Gothic horror literature that came from is far scarier than what those things have become and have been associated with Halloween. Like Halloween has always been there to demythologize and mock those things that go bump in the night, that scare us inwardly, or scare children naturally. The fear of darkness, the fear of something under your bed, in your closet. Halloween is there to demythologize and take away the power of that fear. And that has Christian roots.
Sarah, you were going to say something a minute ago. Was it?
I don't remember.
Oh, I thought it was about candy or something. I can't remember. Maybe not.
Well, and they would call you would go door to door and you would get soul cakes. That's what they called them. It wasn't candy like we have today. I mean, gotta love America. We take a great idea and make it even better with candy and, spending of money. All those, the original trick or treat gift is you would go to your neighbor's door and they would give you what are called soul cakes, which was like a little biscuit or like a sweet bread that would be given. So yeah. Now it's Snickers bars and Reese's peanut butter cups.
Individually wrapped.
Individually wrapped. Yep.
That's funny. So Sarah and I have had this debate over and over again about DJ, I'll start with you. What's your favorite Halloween candy?
Reese's peanut butter cups.
Reese's peanut butter cups.
Mm-hmm.
Sarah?
It's also my favorite Christmas candy, and it's also my favorite Easter candy, and it's also my favorite 4th of July candy. Reese's peanut butter cups. It's
Reese's in different forms.
My daughter's name is Reese, for crying out loud. Are you seeing a pattern?
That's funny. Whoops. Hold on. Did that come through? It wasn't
on my end.
It wasn't supposed to go yet. Hang on a second.
Oh.
This is where I'm at. Hang on just a
second. You're gonna hate on candy corn.
Ready?
June is spooky scary monsters all month long, only on Noggin.
I don't like candy corn. No, I don't like candy corn. I like lots of other things, but I don't like candy corn. Give it to my brother. Give it to my sister. I hope I get something else to eat when I dress up to trick or treat.
Thank you.
I would even eat my own feet. I bet they taste much better. I don't
you go.
I am in complete agreement with that fine. What was that? A public announcement PSA? Is that what that was?
It could be. That was actually Moose and Z from Noggin. I think that was on Nickelodeon. I don't know. Eli watched that a lot when he watched that. I think it was. I can't remember the name of that. Those guys, I think, were sort of like the remember the Saturday morning cartoons. After these messages, we'll be right back. That's
Yes.
Moose and Z. Yeah.
I thought they sounded familiar. Okay. But I get the sense that, Sarah, you are a fan of the candy corn.
You know, for everybody who says that they don't like candy corn, I only just have two responses. One is grow up. Two is you're just not eating it right. You have to eat it with peanuts and hot tamales. Put it in a big old mix. And then it tastes like a salted nut roll. Or like, if you're like me and don't really like super spicy things, it makes it so you can eat hot tamales.
So I gotta say, I had forgotten about that, and you just hit me with a wave of nostalgia.
Yeah.
That I don't think I've had it like that since I was in grade school. Because
That-
I do not like candy corn, but now as soon as you said that, I'm like, oh, I remember that.
I like candy corn. Yeah, see? You just have to eat it right.
Wow, my brain is.
Unfortunately, you're wrong. Unfortunately, you're wrong, Sarah.
Well, agree to disagree, Ryan. You can have the peeps. I'll take the candy corn.
I'm not having any peeps either. Sorry.
You know what? I'm with you on this, Ryan. I think by themselves, all of the cheapest of candies of the holidays are not good. Like I don't like candy corn. I don't like the little chalky Valentine hearts.
Oh,
You don't like those either, huh?
No, not a big fan of the Peeps. I'm trying to think, what is it? Candy canes? I don't mind candy canes. They're
Candy
okay.
canes are all right, but like the Christmas candies are the hard Christmas candies that I'm talking about.
No, I get.
Yeah, they're not good either.
you don't like ribbon candy?
No, they have ribbon candy. There you go. No.
Oh,
I think we're like, I think we're offending Sarah. Like she's like, I thought you were better people, and I'm just.
I thought we were all like on the same page here. Like that's like the best thing of like Christmas is the paper bag that's got peanuts in it and then like random marshmallows and ribbon candy in it.
Nope, wrong again.
Man, haters gonna hate. In the words of Taylor Swift.
My kids don't have. Eli used to go out for trick-or-treating, but Haley has never ever liked it. She's like to just hang out at home and hand out to the kids coming by. DJ, where are your kids at? Do they still go?
Addie doesn't. Reese is at the point where if she does go, this would be her last year. And Dylan's in his prime. Just this last year was the first year really that I got. 2 years ago, I took him trick-or-treating. We were still in North Carolina. The first house, he walked up to the door, looked at the person who opened the door, basically went, nope, and turned around and walked. And so I ended up picking him up and walking back over there. And he's in a little, red Power Rangers costume. That was his costume that year.
Yeah.
And basically said, okay, Dylan, this is your neighbor. You know your neighbor. This is what we say to them. We say trick or treat. So I got him to kind of mumble trick or treat. And he had his little pumpkin jack-o'-lantern, right?
Yep.
And they gave him candy. And as soon as he realized what the transaction entailed, he was off to the races. I couldn't tell him. He was down and running to the next house because he's like, wait, I got to do this with everybody? I'm like, yeah. Just this once a year. Yep. So I mean, he was gone, and we filled up his bucket to the brim, and it was ready to overflow. And that's when I had to cut him off. I'm like, that's my limit.
Yep.
This bucket, and so we went home, and he slept with a smile on his face, having discovered the joy of trick-or-treating.
So like I said, Haley has never ever liked trick-or-treating. The first year, she was born in October, so She didn't go obviously that year. So the next year, when she was a year and a few weeks old or whatever it was, Tabitha bought her this nice butterfly princess costume, and it had wings on it.
Mm-hmm.
And you think it was pretty much a black shirt, black pants, and then these wings. And do you think she'd wear the wings?
No way.
Nope,
Forget
not
it.
wearing them. Not wearing them. So we're like, what are we gonna do? Because at that time, where Tabitha worked, it was a nursing home, and all the residents there wanted to hand out candy to all the kids. They just loved it. So we were heading over there. Like, I don't know what to do. She won't put the wings on. There's no way we're getting them on her. So on the way over there, we stopped at a store, and I bought her a black beanie, and she went as a robber that year.
Nice.
Without knowing that she was a robber. And then Eli, he always loved it. I mean, he had all kinds of different costumes, but forever he wanted to be, remember the movie Scream? Sarah, this might have been before 95.
I know.
But they the long ghost mask, Scream mask, they made a bloody one. We're talking about all the gross stuff.
Yeah.
And for years he wanted that, and for years we said, no, you don't need to go for that as Halloween, or go on Halloween as that. And every year, his friends are getting older and they're getting the gross costumes, and he wants it. And I want this bloody Scream costume. Nope, nope, nope. Finally, fine. Break down, get him the bloody Scream costume.
Mm-hmm.
Puts it on. Went to one house, and he got there, and there was little kids there, and the little kid saw him and screamed at the top of his lungs and took off running. And Eli comes back and says, nope, I'm done. So, and I got one more.
That's because he's a man of virtue and character right there.
Yep, exactly. I got one more quick one too. And this goes back to Sarah setting that bar low.
Mhm.
So Tabitha and I started dating, I think in October, but we were friends for many, many years before we started dating. And so I had an apartment out in Castleton, and she would come over and visit, and like she used to drink Mountain Dew. Now she might still a little bit, but loved Mountain Dew. And so she brought a 12 pack of it and left it in my fridge. And so I'm at home on Halloween and not even thinking, I don't have kids. And all of a sudden, my apartment door, knock, knock, knock. I go over there. Oh no, it's a Halloween. These kids trick or treating. I don't have candy, Well,
And out all those Mountain Dews, didn't you?
the only sweets I had in the house was about 11 Mountain Dews in a box. So I went over there, grabbed 2 of them, one to each kid, and that spread like wildfire. There was no texting at the time, but every kid in Castleton knew that apartment was handing out Mountain Dew. And unfortunately, next time she came to visit, I had forgotten to replace that Mountain Dew.
Man.
But
You'd
What do
become the dropping off point to refresh themselves with a little sugar and caffeine to keep going all night long.
yeah, if I was thinking, I would have shut the light off sooner. I turned all the lights off. I sank way low and on my couch so nobody could see through the window. What's that?
Close the drapes.
Yeah. Well, anyway,
this
our
year
set low, Sarah.
Yeah, right. This year might be different in that maybe it's wearing your costume, and hopefully people will bingo on Wednesday. Spooktacular bingo. That's what Sarah's got going on. But I wonder if people are gonna trick or treat this year, or if it's just gonna be staying at home and eating candy that you purchased and watching a spooky movie with your family, maybe.
I don't. Well, my kids are not doing that anymore, but I don't think we're going to leave our light on. That's the rule, right? If your light is on, it's fair game. I don't think we're going to have ours on this year.
Yep. Well, and I wouldn't be surprised if I haven't heard anything. I haven't heard the state of North Dakota or really any state saying we're banning Halloween this year.
Right.
But it seems like that's the direction of.
Yeah. It's unfortunate too, because there's a lot of kids in our neighborhood. I think we've had in the 70s and 80s for kids, getting candy, and so it's kind of a disappointment.
Well, I will say that we've had a lot of that too. Every neighborhood we lived in, there was a lot of kids, but just between us, I preferred it when few kids came, because guess what kind of candy I would buy to hand out?
Oh, I can only imagine. It wouldn't
was
be
all-
Reese's peanut butter cups, would it?
Reese's peanut butter cups. So then I would have I'd always have a smile on my face. I always buy one bag for myself that I keep to the side on Halloween.
Okay, maybe you mentioned this already, and if you did, I apologize. Is it the ones in the orange pack, the full size ones, or the little ones?
It's all good.
Yeah, but I like the little ones.
Yeah. I don't discriminate amongst them. And you know what they're really good on? S'mores.
Yeah, that's true. See, I like the little ones better, because I feel like they've got a better chocolate to peanut butter ratio.
Well, there you go. My problem with the little ones is I can eat one package of Reese's peanut butter cups and I'm good for a bit. If it's the little ones, I'm
Mhm.
eating 9 or 10 of them. I'm eating them like popcorn.
Keep popping.
Yep.
Yep. So,
Well,
Uh,
happy Halloween, everybody. I'll just
yeah.
say that. And now that you've heard the Christian value of Halloween, understand that and go ahead and trick or treat to your heart's content without any heartburn. But be a person of integrity and virtue, like Eli.
Yeah,
Don't go to be gross.
it's those life lessons.
Mhm.
Yep.
So, anything else on Halloween? Any other comments, or no? We've got I'm not sure when this recording is going to come out.
Today,
It is today before 6:30.
hopefully.
Okay, so at 6:30 tonight, we've got Boo Ingo Halloween bingo on Zoom.
Spooktacular.
Spooktacular. So if you're one of our listeners who listens as soon as the episode drops, don't forget, tonight we got Boo Ingo.
Get signed up, atonement.live.
Yep.
Got to be signed up to join, right? To get the Zoom.
Yeah,
link.
to get the link. Yep. You got to be signed up. So, okay. Well, we got a question this week from a listener named Louise. This is, I believe this is Louise's first time sending anything. So Louise, thank you for the question. It is about Cain from the book of Genesis.
Mhm.
It says, when he was sent away and married, did he marry his sister, or were there other people living in other places?
Yeah, that's the big question, right? So there's two different answers that I'm going to give to this. One that's based on the tradition of faith, and another one that's just pure speculation that does not discount or invalidate the Bible in any way. Okay, so what we're talking about is in the book of Genesis, we hear about the first two humans, Adam and Eve. And Adam and Eve had two sons, and that's what we hear, that they had two sons, named Cain and Abel. Then we hear that Adam and Eve also had other sons and daughters, but they're not named except for one other son named Seth. I believe he's the only other one who's named.
Mm-hmm.
And the story of Cain and Abel is that Cain and Abel come before the Lord and give offering, and Cain is a farmer, just like his dad before him. You know, Adam was a farmer. Cain's a farmer. Adam's name means land, and Cain means like favorite son. It's got this connotation that Cain's way more important than Abel. And it's tied into the promise that God makes to Eve when she says, you will have your seed will crush the serpent's head. Cain's name seems to speak about like, this is the one we've been waiting for. This is the son of man we've been waiting for in Cain. And Abel's name means like extra guy. So he's kind of like an afterthought. Abel is a shepherd. Cain is a farmer. So Cain follows in the family business of his father, Adam, whereas basically Abel is like an entrepreneur going and doing something else, but carrying out the stewardship of creation that God gives to humans. Now it comes down to an offering is given, and Cain gives an offering of his stuff, basically like a grain offering, and Abel gives an offering of the best of his flock. And it says that God was pleased with Abel's, but not with Cain's. And we wonder, reading that, well, what was so much better about Abel's offering than Cain's offering? It wasn't the offering that was the important part. It was the faith that was behind the offering that mattered. Okay. And so Cain gets angry because Abel's offering is accepted by the Lord, but Cain's is held not to the same special regard.
Mm-hmm.
And so God speaks to Cain and says, if you give what you have, will it not be respected? Or, something along those lines, like, have faith in me. Well, what ends up happening is Cain ends up in his jealousy and in his spite murdering his brother Abel. And then God calls Cain out on it. And Cain is said to be sent away, and that he has this mark placed on him so that no one would kill him. So it already presupposes that there are other people out there. And then the question comes, because we hear about Cain's descendants, who was his wife? Well, Martin Luther says that one of the daughters of Adam and Eve chose to be the wife of Cain, and therefore not to bring an end to his lineage.
Mm-hmm.
That, right? Now, and so our modern minds might be like, okay, first of all, ew, his sister.
Mm-hmm.
But there's something to understand about history and prehistory. Prior to Noah, it seems like the genetic predisposition, if you want to put it that way, of the biblical people was not as tight-lined as it was after Noah and the ark, which seems to make sense because you have a lot of time that's passed since the beginning, and you have sin entering in and people's lifespans getting less and less and less. And if you think about that on a genetic predisposition, mutations are happening, and mutations always mutations don't lead to good stuff. Mutations always seem to lead to bad stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have like a diluting of the gene pool from the original source. And when you get down to the family of Noah, Noah's 3 sons have 3 wives. And it's interesting, I've heard this put, I need to do more research into it, but that there are like 3 genetic markers in every DNA code. And it just happens to be that there are 3 different genetic persons left after going down from Adam and Eve until the time of Noah. And then it spreads out again. But everyone has these same 3 genetic markers, which means that everybody came from the same source.
Mm-hmm.
And even in our very Scandinavian outward appearance of the 3 of us, in our DNA is the DNA genetic markers for anyone who is Asian or even Black. It's highly rare, but it is within anyone's DNA code that your children end up having a different complexion or look, because all humanity comes from the same source. Did you know that?
No.
Yes, it's very rare, but it's not impossible for 2 Scandinavian people to have a child who is very dark in complexion with brown eyes and black hair, because those are all within our DNA. Just as complete albinism is also in everyone's DNA. So something to think about. So that's one way to speak about it. That's the way that Luther spoke about it, minus the genetic stuff, because he didn't have that in his day.
Mm-hmm.
But there's another way to look at this, and it's pure speculation. But the Bible allows for the possibility that Adam and Eve are not the first people. You ever heard that before?
So I was actually going to ask another question that this reminded me of, but since you went there already, I'll ask it now. You hear a lot, and usually I don't think it. I've heard the name Lilith before in regard to the Bible and to actually being Adam's first wife. Have you heard that before?
I have, but it's not in the Bible. It actually comes from Jewish mysticism, if anything. And so it's not biblical. What I'm saying is there is an argument to be made that is purely based on the Bible, that Adam and Eve were not the first two people. Do you want to hear it?
Yeah.
So in Genesis 1, you hear in very poetic fashion the creation of everything. And the last line on day 6 says, and God created them male and female.
And it repeats.
Male and female, he created them, right?
Yep.
Now, what tradition presupposes is that what's just been said in a poetic fashion is now zoomed into on the 6th day with the creation of the first man and first woman. If you separate those two out and say, okay, this is an event that happened, the 6 days or the 6 ages of creation. And then what happens next is God reveals himself to humanity by actually doing something with his creation. And he does form Adam and Eve with his own hands. We don't know how much time has gone by since the first, if you take day to mean not one 24-hour day, but ages of creation, it's interesting how that lines up with theories about evolution. See, evolution, the biggest problem with evolution within a biblical narrative is not evolution per se, but the time that's necessary. And if you're saying, nope, it has to be 6 literal days, then you have to reject the idea of creation happening over many years. Whereas evolution, if it rejects and says, no, it has to be many years, that's where the problem happens, is how long, what's the time frame in which God does these things?
Right.
So let's just presuppose that prior to Adam and Eve coming on the scene, that God has allowed humanity to develop over time, and death has been a natural consequence of evolution, because in evolution, death is necessary. It has a purpose. Now, what happens is God now takes the best of his creation, made in his own image, Adam and Eve, and doesn't just speak them into existence. God forms them and breathes his own life into Adam and Eve. And it's from Adam and Eve that God plants paradise and sets up the possibility for this human creation that can perish to be able to survive death by eating the fruit of the tree of life, which is basically the promise of God's goodness being given to those that are made in his own image, humans, right? God said, let us make them in our own image, male and female, and created them. That's in Genesis 1. Genesis 2 and 4, God takes the best of his creation, Adam and Eve. And to Adam and Eve comes judgment, a testing. Will my creation be faithful to me and allow me to be the creator and them the creation? And thus, from the beginning, overcome the consequence of death and live eternally. That's what happens in the garden. The tree of the knowledge of good and evil is laid out, and Adam and Eve choose death, sin, and wanting to be their own gods over being faithful and being the good creation they were meant to be. They wanted to be their own gods. And all of humanity then gets trapped in this corruption, and therefore death becomes the consequence of sin rather than a penalty for sin after the fact. You understand the difference?
Yeah.
Like God was going to remove Adam and Eve and humanity from the consequence of death, or from the reality of death, but it ends up becoming a consequence because of sin. Death remains the end all for a sinful humanity that's separated from God. And this judgment happens because Adam and Eve, the best of humanity, fails to be faithful. So the whole rest of the Bible is a sequence of God promising to redeem his broken creation, his broken humanity that is brought to completion in his Son, Jesus Christ, who becomes the second Adam, or the creation that is without sin, that remains without sin, even in the face of death itself, and therefore overcomes death, which is the opposite of what happens to Adam and Eve. Are you following me that far?
Yep.
That all makes sense?
Yep.
Yeah.
So then the last piece you have is, so who did Cain marry? Well, Cain married the descendant, a woman of other peoples that are outside of the garden and God's chosen people. And what makes them chosen people is that God has revealed himself through his word and through his revelation to Adam and Eve and then their descendants. Whereas there's been a whole other grouping of people who do not know God, to whom God is hidden from. And so, and this falls right in line with the revelation of Scripture and how the church operates throughout history. It's all tied into God gives a word to a person, and that person passes on that word, and faithfulness to that word makes you in relationship with God. Unfaithfulness to that word keeps you separate from God. And so Cain is separated from God because of his sin, and therefore just joins the rest of humanity that is not children of God, basically. So that's the other answer. So yes, it's either a sister of Cain, or yes, it's another person. Those are really the only two possibilities.
Yeah. And
Luther said it's his sister. I speculate on the other one. It's fine with me if it's his sister or not. If it's not, I have no problem. I don't have any heartburn over this idea that Adam and Eve are the ones who are judged. All of humanity is judged through Adam and Eve. But what becomes interesting is that everyone is descended from Adam and Eve, because what happens at the flood?
everybody was wiped out
Everybody was wiped out except for who?
except for Noah and his family.
And his family. Now, what we don't know about Noah and his family is who were the parents, what was the lineage of Noah's sons' daughters?
Right. Don't know.
But the line has come down to basically 3.
Yeah. I think the other thing, and we talked about this a few weeks ago with Pastor Cross, is
I'm sorry, Noah's sons' wives. Did I say that right? I may have said Noah's sons' daughters. Who are the parents of Noah's sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, their wives, who were also saved in the flood? Were they from the line of Adam and Eve, or were they from the line of the rest of humanity?
Yeah.
That's kind of the big point I was trying to make there.
That's more confusing than trying to figure out how Dell and I are related.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And you know what? A hard time we had with that one.
Yeah.
No, we just to follow up on that. I think it kind of goes back to a couple of weeks ago when we were visiting with Pastor Cross, and how the earth was likely a lot different place prior to the flood.
Yep.
However that looked.
What I just shared with you, here are things that are incontrovertible that cannot be denied. One, that Adam and Eve are historic figures. And 2, that the flood was an historic event.
Yep.
If you hold those 2 things to be unassailable fact, then whether or not Adam and Eve are the first 2 persons to exist becomes irrelevant to the biblical witness and its truth.
Right.
So if what I just said seemed confusing, listen to it a couple more times, because it's necessary for the rest of the revelation of Scripture, particularly the New Testament, where Paul says, from Adam, comes death. What I just said does not discount that, but makes clear that because of Adam, death becomes the natural consequence for sin, because sin entered and death becomes the consequence for it.
Yeah.
But also the uniting of all of humanity made in God's image with the line of Adam becomes that promise that all of modern humanity is descended from, that is redeemed by the blood of Jesus. Make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Cool. So thank you, Louise, for that question. And if anyone else has any questions, hopefully we'll be back to our intro music pretty soon. And then A, we'll have that intro, and B, I won't screw up the website addresses. But thatpodcast.net is one spot that you can submit questions to. Sarah, did you have anything, or DJ, did you have anything else that you wanted to say following up on Louise's question?
Louise, it's great to hear from you. We miss you. I know Louise personally. She is a fine, fine person who I care very much about. I'm glad that she's listening.
Cool. Excellent. All right. Sarah, you weren't here last week. Do you want to pray us out this week?
Sure. Heavenly Father, I thank you for this time to gather again and discuss the many things and many questions that come from this world that we live in. I thank you that we have you as a God, so we are able to lampoon and laugh at anything that tries to scare us in the night or tries to guide us away from you. We know that we can always come home to you, and that we can know that we are safe and we are protected and we are loved because you are our God and you are in control overall. Lord, I want to just pray a blessing over anybody who is listening to this episode, not listening to this episode, listen to episodes in the past, that they know your peace and your love, and that if they don't and they have questions, they reach out or they find your truth. In your name I pray. Amen.
Amen. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Remember, you can find us on the YouTube by searching Atonement Fargo. You can also visit us at atonement.live and atonementfargo.org. Sarah, I got those right?
You did.
Okay, good. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and join us again next week for another riveting episode of that podcast.